Okay, everyone, in this training, we're going to talk about identifying action takers in a life insurance telesales presentation. Now, action takers are people who are more inclined to buy. They're buyers. They have a high likelihood of taking action on the call you're on right now. And being able to identify action takers as opposed to procrastinators is a big skill that you can build on as you're going through your presentation, because you're going to tailor your presentation towards an action taker in a different way than you're going to tailor your presentation towards a procrastinator. And there's these signals, there's these cues you can pick up on that I want to show you guys today that you can find during your life insurance presentation. Okay. Now, to start, everyone who calls in or everybody you're on the phone with is a procrastinator, right? Until you label them an action taker. So let's start there. Always assume somebody is a procrastinator until they give you a signal that they're an action taker. Now let's go through what those signals are. There's only a few of them, okay? So if somebody has life insurance, you're going through your situational questions, you ask if they currently have life insurance, they say yes, they are an action taker, okay? That's action taker number one. Now, a lot of agents get mixed emotions when somebody already has life insurance. But the truth is, if you're taking inbound calls like a digital VGA, somebody calls in and they already have coverage, you know that you either want to add to the coverage or change something about their current coverage. Maybe they think they're paying too much or there's something they don't like about it, okay? So in that sense, you have an action taker on the other line. Now, the second thing is if they don't have coverage, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not an action taker. You just got to qualify even more. So you always ask the question, have you ever applied for life insurance in the past, or have you ever owned a policy? Okay. And you're going to get three outcomes. Two of those three outcomes mean they're an action taker. Okay. First outcome is they applied for coverage, but they got declined, or it came back too expensive, right? They maybe applied for level coverage and it came back graded or whatever, more expensive, and they didn't get it. The thing is, they are an action taker. Right? They applied, they gave their personal information, their social, their bank account, all that stuff, and they're comfortable going through the process and they want the coverage. They just didn't get the right company or the right agents. Okay. So they're an action taker though. Fist pump if you get somebody like that. I mean, that's good news. Somebody who has coverage, number one, great news. Somebody who doesn't have coverage but has applied and been declined or has, it was too expensive. Again, they took action. That's all we're looking for here. People who you know will take action at the end of this call if you give them all the information they need. Okay. Also, you have somebody who's owned a life insurance policy in the past and let it lapse. They're an action taker. They see the value in life insurance. They've given all their personal information. They've owned a policy and they're calling back to get it again. Okay. Those two outcomes, when you ask that question, if they've ever owned life insurance in the past, right? Those two are action takers. It's only the third one where they've never applied for life insurance before, and this is their first time, where they're a procrastinator. They've gone through their whole lives without owning life insurance, and they may be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're talking to you right now. They procrastinated their entire life. They are a procrastinator, and you need to put your prospects in the action taker bucket or the procrastinator bucket. Okay, we're going to talk about how to handle each one after I go through another signal here. So another signal that keep your eye out for is through your prospects who are asking buying questions. So what's a buying question? It's any question that one of your prospects has that talks about the application process or after owning a policy. So it's not somebody who talks about prices or asks about quotes. Those aren't buying questions. Those are pre-sale questions, right? So if you have somebody that's asking you very specific buying questions, like, is there a waiting period before my policy pays out in full? Can I adjust my coverage if I come across any financial hardships? What happens if I miss a payment? What information do I need to give you to get a life insurance policy? Guys, those are buying questions. Like those, you answer them, you address them, and you make sure they feel comfortable with those questions. But those are great signals that these are buyers now, okay? That person just went from a procrastinator to a buyer in your mind right there. And you need to address them as a buyer, as an action taker. Okay. So the last thing I'll say here, I just want to touch on this as well. The lead type will also signal action takers. And you're going to get more action takers if you have somebody calling in to you, okay? Whether it's a TV ad or an online ad, and they're calling you, you have to realize that they know they're about to speak with somebody. They already said, okay, I see the ad, there's a need and a want there, I'm calling in, I'm trying to get somebody on the phone. They're an action taker. They took decisive action to speak to somebody right now. There's a difference between an online or Facebook or Google or whatever type of lead where you're reaching out to them. Okay. In a sense, they're kind of kicking the can down the road because they're not calling the phone number. They're just filling out a form. Right. So it's almost like their alarm, just like, hey, I know I want to need this. There's a hint of interest there, but I'm going to kick this down the road. Somebody's going to call me and I'll address it then. Okay. This person right now is an action taker who calls in. Okay. If you get somebody who calls in and hits one of those situational questions where they already have coverage, or they've owned a policy in the past, or they've applied and they were either declined or it was too expensive, and they're asking buying questions, guys, any of those combinations is a laydown, okay? And you can make it a laydown here. So how do you deal with those different types of leads? Okay, you have your action takers. And so action takers, there's a few things here. So action takers often have specific concerns or questions, and you just need to address those specific concerns or questions and flesh those out. They've owned life insurance in the past, and and most of the time there's a specific question that they'll have. Okay. On top of that, what you really need to focus on in the sales presentation is why they should buy from you and why they should buy the company that you're going to recommend. Okay? So when you have an action taker, you have to focus and separate yourself from the competition. Why should they buy from you? Beyond, you build rapport, you build the trust, you are competent, you've demonstrated your mission-driven way of selling, like you believe in this product, you have that conviction, right? Why should they buy from you? What separates you from the policy that they applied for and they got declined or came back too expensive, or the person where they lapsed the policy and obviously they didn't call that agent where they bought the policy before? They're on the phone with you. There was nothing in that relationship there, right? So you need to separate yourself from them and and show them that you're competent and this is, one of the better plans on the market that's right for them, right? And then you have to get them comfortable in the company that you're going to recommend, because it's likely they've never heard of the product or company you're going to recommend. So you got to build that company up as well. So if you do those two things effectively, answer all their questions and concerns, you're more than likely going to land a new client there because they've taken action before. You've addressed everything. You've given a full presentation and done the things that they needed to hear, right? And so how does that differentiate from a procrastinator, for example? And the truth is, most leads are procrastinators, okay? And if you identify a procrastinator, you need to challenge their current way of thinking, or they're going to keep procrastinating, okay? So we train on this at Digital BGA, and it's an acquired skill. It's about getting the why, which everybody goes for, why do you need this coverage? But then asking probing follow-up questions. So their why they can really feel the consequences of not owning coverage and stir up those emotions. Because, our demographic, they don't buy based on logic. They all know that they need it. They buy based on emotion, okay? And that's what you have to do to turn a procrastinator into an action taker. You got to build that connection and build that urgency and that why and that need in them so that they will take action today. And that's much harder to do than if you have an action taker who just needs to know about you and the company and address any specific concerns because they've applied before. They know exactly and you know exactly what to do. If they already have coverage, you know exactly if you're trying to beat a certain rate, if you're trying to add to what they currently have, right? So all that to say is, guys, when you go through a presentation, somebody's either an action taker or a procrastinator. And you need to focus your presentation based on what they are. You're going to go through the whole presentation no matter what. And then when you get somebody on the phone, assume they're a procrastinator until they give you signals that they're an action taker. All right. And then once they become an action taker, address their concerns and then separate yourself and the company that you're going to recommend from the competition. And you're going to be in a great spot to win a new client.